Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Vidhi Bajwa. I'm the Chief Board Program Coordinator here at the GEO Secretariat. I will let Wembo introduce herself right after, but we're very pleased to welcome you to this webinar on the 2023 GEO Awards. These awards are organized under the supervision of GEO's Program Board that has been overseeing the development and implementation of the award since 2019. There's a lot more to talk about when it comes to the awards, but I will not take any of the content away from Wembo. But I just want to say before we start the meeting that we encourage you to please spread the word far and wide among your networks as well about the awards, and to feel free to reach out to myself and Wembo on any specific questions that you may have during the meeting and also after. So with that, I hand over to Wembo.
Hi, everyone. This is Wembo Chu, a work program officer. I work with Maria in the same team, and both of us will support the award process this year. And in our later presentation, so I will introduce the process, criteria, and eligibility of the submissions, and Maria will provide you with some tips how to write a good application based on our earlier experience of the previous award applications. Share my screen and to introduce you about the basics of the GEO Award 2023. Can you see my screen? Yes? Okay. So some background about the GEO Award, as Maria has introduced. It was created 4 years ago by the program board, and we have been recognizing 14 outstanding individuals since then. So the initial purpose of the Individual Excellence Award is to recognize those who play a very important role to the work program achievements, but not necessarily visible to the community. So and I think, those 14 awardees really represent that crowd. We have been trying to make the awards inclusive and diverse enough, in terms of geographic diversity and gender and generational as well. But given the breadth of the GEO work program activities, we and the jury had a hard time to make the decisions sometime. So in some instances, we had several individuals actually from the same work program team applied, and it's really challenging to make a decision among them because all of them are great. And indeed, the GEO work program activities are collaborative efforts, spanning from different countries. So this year, under the supervision of the program board, we created 2 new categories. One is recognizing the team impact. The secondary is in particular dedicated to the young lead. So we call that Emerging Lead Award. And this year, for those 2 categories, we will recognize maximum 2 awardees per category. And we have the criteria for those 2 categories partly inherited from the previous Individual Excellence Award. For example, what we define as impact, and all the awardees, all the applicants should adhere to GEO's core value. And this will be described in the criteria later. I will talk about. And indeed, here are the high-level criteria for the 2 categories of awards. So the Emerging Lead Award, we add some new criteria on top of the Individual Excellence Award. For example, effective communication and advocacy. So we truly wanted the applicant to be vocal at the national, regional, international forum representing the youth community, advocating for the value of Earth observations. And also, of course, since it's dedicated to youth, there's age limit, 35 years old, including 35 years old and below. And for the team award, which is very important in addition to the accomplishment made by the team, we also would put high weight on the active global or regional network it puts together. In terms of the process and the timeline, we started the call for nominations for applicants in the mid of June after the PB meeting. So now we are at the mid of July having this webinar, and the deadline for the submission is the end of this month. And in between now and the end of this month, we will also convene the jury for the award selection. So in the mid-August, we will have a shortlist, and in early September, we will try to finalize the selection and inform the awardees. And the awards will be celebrated during the GEO Week 2023 in Cape Town, South Africa, at a gala dinner, as we have done in Canberra in 2019. And what is more this year, so we will actually have a part of a plenary session highlighting what has been achieved by the awardees, in particular the team award winners. About the eligibility of the submissions, first, what is very basic, you need to complete the nomination form, which you can find on the GEO website in the call for nominations. And for the Emerging Lead Award, you need to provide a CV of the nominees. For the Team Impact Award, that is not needed. And basically, anyone from the GEO community can nominate themselves or someone else, but the award jury members couldn't. So when it comes to the jury convening, so if you are approached by the secretariat, as a jury, and but you have nominated or you will nominate someone, so please explain to us that you couldn't accept that role. And all the individuals and teams who are involved in the GEO work program can be nominated, but to avoid the conflict of interest, so the award jury members and the GEO secretariat members, the executive committee members, and the PB members couldn't be nominated. Next, I will pass along to Mariha to introduce the tips for a good application. Mariha, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Wembo, and hello everyone again. So we've put together a couple of tips for how to write a good application from our experience with previous awardees, tips that we've heard from jury members and subgroup members, and some of these may seem very self-evident, but they do bear repeating. So for instance, first of all, please do understand and keep front and center the GEO mission and vision. That is, we're set up to break down the barriers to the availability, access, and use of Earth observation. So make sure that when you're writing your statement, that this is just, it's evident in how you're crafting your impact story. Please do make sure that you respond to all the criteria that have been listed within the announcement for the awards, because each criteria will be marked. So make sure that once you double check your application, that you are hitting all the points that need to be hit. Some of the criteria are exclusionary. So for instance, in relation to age, for the Emerging Leader Award, you need to be 35 and below. So that's going to be an immediate exclusionary criteria if the applicant does not meet it. Or the fact that the Team Impact Award must have some direct link to the GEO work program. So when you're submitting your proposal, do make sure that that is very clearly articulated. We also encourage you to quantify your achievements to make it as tangible as possible for the awards jury to understand what you have done in terms of not just process, especially not just process, but in terms of impact. How many people have you, for instance, affected through X activity? How many communities have you touched? How have lives been improved as a result of your actions? So try to make that very clear in your submission. We also encourage you to focus. In the past, we sometimes receive submissions that touch upon a lot of work that the individual submitter has done without going through the work in the depth that is needed. Because what the awards jury wants to see is that you've done something, you've done some activities, and that they have led to a results chain towards impact. So if you're talking about a lot of activities, sometimes that results chain is not readily evident. And our most successful applicants have been those that have gone deep and shown how their actions have been developed and how they have resulted in impact. So we do encourage you to try and focus your application. We also think that it is important to reflect on limitations, and because it shows awareness, it shows that not everything is ever perfect, that it's never a linear road to impact. So that, for instance, if through your activity, you have catalyzed a global community, maybe that global community does not have as many youth as a fully inclusive global community should have. And if that is indeed the case, then saying that up front and saying that this is part of our future direction, that we intend to do X, Y, and Z to address this shortcoming, is something that we know that the jury would like to see, because that is the kind of things that they're going to be looking out for. So if you already forestall it by articulating it, that's only a good thing. And of course, the narrative, when you are writing up your submission, think about it like a story. You're telling a story. So the narrative has to be compelling. Don't go into too much detail, but rather walk the jury through the entire results chain and walk them like you would as a great storyteller, not by creating fiction, but by walking them through the steps that were taken and the outcomes and outputs and impacts that were delivered. On the next slide, you will see that indeed there is a difference between the two awards. So depending on which award you are applying for, you need to balance out the narrative accordingly. This is very clear in the criteria, but we've just put it up here to reinforce the point. So for instance, under the Emerging Leader Award, we want to see The jury wants to see that the nominees have leadership skills, and you have to convey that, whether it is by catalyzing an initiative, catalyzing a community, bringing together diverse groups of people to work together on something. We really want to see those leadership skills. And we want to see what you individually have done, because this is about the emerging leader, not about a team. So make sure you focus on your individual contributions. Great to show your journey of growth during the process of, because you are an emerging leader. What would be ideal is also to see your passion and your motivation coming through in your submission. And of course, if you've got any volunteer or community capacities or efforts that you have done, please do throw those in. And you have the possibility of having 2 referees. Please do, I mean, it's not a possibility, actually, it is mandatory. You have to give at least the names and contacts of 2 referees. So use that to have them champion your submission. Of course, we had a question in the earlier webinar, whether it matters if you are nominating yourself or someone is nominating you. And from the perspective of the jury, it does not matter. And previously, we've had award winners who have nominated themselves. And who better to tell your story than you? So please do let people know, or yourselves, if you need to know this, that it does not matter if you're nominating yourself for the Emerging Leader Award or someone is nominating you. But what you do need is 2 referees. On the Team Impact Award, it's a different way of framing that submission. So what we're looking for is collaboration, and how that collaboration has resulted in impact and outcomes. So this is not about one person, it's about communities. And that's how the narrative will need to be framed. It's really what GEO is, right? A community that works together. So this is what the jury will want to recognize. If there is an interdisciplinary network that has been engaged, that's obviously a good thing to show. If your activity or your effort is sustainable and scalable, even better. Those are all great things to have in a submission. Feel free to reflect on lessons learned and good practices, because again, these are things that are important for the jury to see. And again, we welcome you to include additional documentation. Please not too much, because the jury will not be able to go through 100-page documents, but really curate them in a way that you can direct the jury to the most important things that provide supporting evidence for your submission. Next slide, please. And here we've given you some examples of what we're looking for in great submissions. So the process is obviously how you do something, but action is what should be coming out in submission. So in the dark blue box, you see a typical process being described, and what ideally should also be described is the action. And so the text in light blue says something like, I helped ensure that Earth observations were included in a key climate change resolution. Now I'm making sure this translates to practical decision-making and policy in Uganda, Indonesia, and Kenya. This is far more compelling for a jury to see some language in this direction. Obviously, it will need to be further substantiated, but this is the general flavor. In the next slide, we will show you that, again, we're interested in impact, not in outputs. So in dark blue, you see outputs. The work program initiative has resulted in the development of 5 new tools designed to provide policymakers with evidence. This is about what was done. But in light blue, you've got what happened as a result of the use of those tools. So the tools developed have been used by Ghana and Egypt to predict drought and crop failure, benefiting X number of smallholder farmers and saving the government X amount of money. This is a true impact text. So this is the level that we're looking at for the team impact award. On the next slide, you will see that we do want to see a different type of language depending on whether it's the Emerging Leader Award or the Team Impact Award. So in the first, we want to see a focus on what the individual's role was, versus in the latter, we want to know what the team was and how it worked together, through which competencies to collaborate and deliver impact. On the next slide, this is the last one. Please assume that the jury knows nothing about you or your team, which means moving and ensuring there is no jargon, no acronyms. On the left-hand side, in dark blue box, you will see an example of what not to do in a submission with acronyms and jargon, whereas on the right-hand side in light blue is a much simpler way of conveying the same thing. It's not necessarily easy for us because we are used to writing to our communities using acronyms and language that is familiar to them, but for the purposes of this exercise, we request you to try to convey your story a bit differently. Now, I think the next slide should be the last one, and it reiterates a few other points, very basic ones, but we have 10 days to the deadline. So please, if you haven't already, start now, because it's the most successful applications that we have seen are the ones that you can tell have taken time and energy by the submitters to draft. So really do start now if you haven't already. Also, read it out loud, read it again and again, understand and see whether what you have written reflects the impact and the story that you're trying to make. Get feedback from others. Do get reviewers to tell you how they feel about the language that you've written. Sometimes you're too close to the story to be able to take a step back. So we do recommend that you get some feedback on it. Like I said, assume that the jury knows nothing about you. When they are going to be ranking proposals, they will not be ranking them based on what they know. Even if they do know something about you, they will only focus on what is written in your submission. So that is where your energy needs to go, in making sure that you have a strong submission, and try to quantify to the extent possible your submission and provide as much supporting evidence as you like. With that, I will pause here and turn it back to you, Wenbo.
Thank you so much, Madiha. So
thank you all very much, and we look forward to your submissions and being in touch later on the process.
Have a nice evening. Have a nice day. Bye.